covering sports for 30 years. It's one thing for an exhibition here, there, whatever, but you can't continue to be allowed to build a career without getting into the ring with fighters. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon.
Does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. Well, I think boxing damages itself left, right and centre, but I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway.
Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK.
Stephen A. Smith reacts angrily to the announcement, stating that Jake Paul has never treated boxing with the level of seriousness the sport requires. He claims that Jake's career has relied on exhibitions and opponents who were never legitimate challenges, including retired fighters and individuals long removed from their prime. Smith argues that this repeated approach shows disrespect toward boxing, and that the proposed fight with Anthony Joshua illustrates just how poorly the sport is being handled.
He can't continue to get away with stepping into the ring against strikers for the UFC, basketball players, unknown boxers.
Simon Jordan voices deep concern about the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul matchup, saying it exposes several problems within today's boxing landscape. He explains that commercial motives have overshadowed the sport's integrity, with fighters and promoters focusing more on exposure and money than true competition. Jordan stresses that when boxing shifts toward spectacle instead of skill, it risks losing the respect earned over many years. He cautions both fans and industry figures that while such fights generate profit, they may create harmful examples for younger fighters and damage how the sport is viewed. Jordan adds that this bout represents a worrying trend where financial rewards outweigh athletic challenge. He believes the fight is driven more by headlines, social media attention, and ticket revenue than real sporting merit. According to Jordan, pairing a star like Anthony Joshua with someone lacking top-level opposition weakens boxing's credibility. He contends that turning an elite champion into a marketing tool diminishes the achievements of fighters who have devoted their lives to the sport.
But this to me is everything that's wrong with boxing. It's a money play, nothing wrong. I don't begrudge Anthony Joshua getting 50 million quid for an easy night's work. That's fantastic returns. Most people would take it. In the boxing world, Jake Paul is now a professional fighter. Whether we categorise him as a YouTuber or not, he's licensed to fight, which means that the governing body should be suggesting that this is not a fight that possibly they should be looking to sanction.
Yeah.
But they will, because the sanctioning fees will be enormous. Anthony Joshua will not lose his legacy like some people are suggesting, because no one will remember it in 2 or 3 years' time. If he embarrasses himself in there, they'll remember it. But if he goes in and knocks him out in 30 seconds flat, or turns it into a little bit more of a sort of Jake LaMotta raging Paul, holding him up for a few rounds and then knocking him out, then people will forgive it. He'll get a big bag of money, which most people in the world would take, and move on. And then we'll see if he fights anybody meaningful in the year. I mean, it is like sport has become. And what I got my head around on Saturday night was the entertainment value of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. The fighting of itself, I could be all pious about it, but the entertainment industry is so prevalent in sport now. This is entertainment. This is going to have hundreds of millions of people watching it.
Of course.
And Anthony Joshua gets paid, and Jake Paul hopefully gets flattened.
Simon, I know the money's there, but does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. Well, I think boxing damages itself left, right and centre, but I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway. But I think it does get damaged.
Even if it's an exhibition fight, which it might well be.
Well, then what's the jeopardy in that? If it's an exhibition fight, which it shouldn't be, if it's a proper fight, then Jake Paul is going to get demolished.
Johnny Nelson shares his perspective, calling the matchup completely wild and genuinely dangerous. He points out that this is far from a standard crossover bout. It is a serious fight with real stakes and genuine physical risk. Nelson respects Jake Paul's courage but questions the judgment of facing an established heavyweight champion. He says the shock value comes from how real the contest is. This is not an exhibition, and any mistake could have serious consequences. Nelson's response reflects the mix of intrigue, excitement, and worry felt across the boxing world. He goes on to discuss Jake Paul's unusual profile as a fighter. Although Paul has shown ability and confidence in earlier fights, Nelson emphasizes that those opponents were nowhere near Joshua's level. He views Jake's boldness as impressive, yet also troubling given the extreme danger involved in taking on a world-class heavyweight.
Because of Anthony Joshua's desire to be in the history books, to be a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. To me, it shows me his desire. Yeah, pick up 50 million along the way. Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK. Would he win a British title? No, I don't think so. So now they're putting this domestic level fighter in with a former heavyweight two-time champion of the world. The weight is 245. So I think the last time Anthony Joshua weighed around that it was when he bought Usyk. That means he's got to be fight fit on point, because his last fight was 18 stone. I think it was 254 against Danny Dubois. So now he's basically saying you've got to get yourself in position, get yourself fit, and get yourself ready for fight. It's not tiddlywinks. This is a fight. It's not a push and a pull. You know, so as long as it's not a push and a pull, and don't put me down and don't touch me in the build up to this fight. You know, when McGregor and Mayweather, they had the little side of don't touch me in the build up to this. If this is a real, legitimate fight, Jake Paul is absolutely crazy. If not crazy, he's super brave. And it'll be interesting to see.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, because you said that before when we spoke about it being a proper fight or not. And Eddie Hearn and Paul's promoter, Nakisa Badarin, have both said in the last couple of days it will be a proper fight. And now you've heard the details, 8 rounds, 3 minutes around, 10-ounce gloves. Do you believe it when they say that it's going to be a proper fight?
I do believe it because AJ's involved, and I think AJ'd struggle to he's going to take enough flack over this, but again, it's money talk. So I think AJ will struggle because it's an Owen situation. If he goes in there, Jake Paul lasts the distance. What does he tell you about AJ? Apart from he's just earned an extra 15 million quid. If he goes there and struggles with Jake Paul, then what to say about AJ? Your heydays are well and truly over. If he goes in there and knocks him out, then I'll say that's to be expected. So the glory, there's probably not much glory in it, apart from the haters of Jake Paul to say, right, we've got rid of this kid. I think it's very brave of Jake Paul. So now the problem child has got to believe this fight's actually happening. So
Tony Jeff presents a practical viewpoint, reminding that surprises are always possible in boxing. He highlights that preparation, training, and mental approach can occasionally balance the scales, even when experience or age favors one fighter. Jeff notes that Jake is younger than Joshua, which may help with endurance and recovery. However, he concedes that Paul has not reached Joshua's technical standard. Even so, Jeff acknowledges that Jake has made clear progress and that with proper planning and commitment, unexpected results can occur, underscoring boxing's unpredictability. Jeffer also points to Jake Paul's dedication, noting that he has displayed strong commitment while preparing for tougher opponents. He emphasizes that although Paul's skill level trails Joshua's, his willingness to train and improve deserves recognition. Jeffrey suggests the gap between them may be smaller than critics believe, explaining that discipline, preparation, and mental sharpness can reduce physical differences. This view adds balance to the discussion, recognizing Paul's development while staying realistic about the scale of the challenge he faces.
Prime. Where Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, is, well, I'm not going to say he's coming into his prime because he had some great wins earlier on in his career before he lost to Usyk twice. And by the way, when he did lose to Usyk, the last one was a split decision. It was a pretty close fight. So now this fight is matched, and I just want to look at the tail of the tape. Now, looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got talking about experience and everything else. What comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then, like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem to prime a little bit older. They'll come down to the height and the weight. This is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pounds versus 252 pounds. We've got a 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, we can see that Jake's only had one, where AJ's had 43, but 43 of them are included at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, he won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost 1. AJ has had 28 fights and he's lost 4 with 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight, and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people after this. So, what are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul.
Chael Sonnen remarks that Jake Paul's doubters will finally see the standard of opposition he faces when he steps into the ring with a true professional. Sonnen notes that this matchup will reveal whether Paul's past wins were boosted by selective matchmaking or if he genuinely fits within serious competitive boxing. He believes the bout will function as a reality test, providing answers for fans, analysts, and the wider boxing community. Sonnen presents the fight as a defining moment for judging the validity of Paul's career and its influence on how crossover boxing is viewed. He expands by saying this contest is a major examination not only for Jake Paul, but also for public perception of the sport itself. He emphasizes that going up against a world-class heavyweight will finally place Paul under close evaluation by veteran analysts and experienced fighters. This attention will determine whether Paul's earlier victories were the result of real ability or simply weaker opposition. Sonnen suggests that such scrutiny ultimately helps boxing by reaffirming standards and expectations for anyone seeking professional recognition, ensuring discussions are based on actual performance rather than promotional narratives.
Courage that it takes for Jake Paul to do this, as well as for Joshua. You know, this isn't Joshua's first time doing a spoof fight. He fought Francis, that was a spoof fight. Francis had never won boxing before, but we understood he has fought before. It was one of those things where when you got through it, like coming into the front side, I'm sure Anthony Joshua trained plenty hard for it. But coming out the back, he probably realized I didn't need to train for that at all. That was fun, that was a good time. I gotta hear him call my names, I gotta go out there, I gotta be light on my feet, I gotta lay on these combinations and then cut an interview and pump my hands over my shoulders like I accomplished something. What dreams are made of. And so Joshua did for those fights. It was with Francis, and this is a completely different kind of that type of fight, but it's still that fight nonetheless. Jake Paul has abilities to win this fight. A lot of them involve moral victories. A lot of them involve getting out of the first round. And a lot of them would involve getting out of the first 2 rounds and haven't been knocked down yet. One would be getting out of the 3rd round, you've only been on the canvas once and you got up to your feet, you shook it off and you're ready to keep going. Like, these things are all victories, but the fight that it's going to happen, I think it's a big deal for Jake Paul. I think it's a big deal for everybody involved. I think it's a big deal that Francis looks at that fight and realizes, oh, these things make sense. These things that make dollars, they make sense. That's his business. This was his opportunity that he missed out on. And now Joshua's gonna have a lot of fun. And overall, I see the fight being one-sided. And people keep saying, well, slow down, wait till you hear what all of the rules under exhibition clause mean. As long as they're throwing punches at one.
Dan Raphael provides an assessment centered on Jake Paul's recent development. He observes that Paul has progressed as a fighter since his contest with Tommy Fury, showing better technique, conditioning, and tactical awareness. Still, Raphael emphasizes that despite these gains, Paul remains far below Anthony Joshua's elite caliber. He points out that the distance between an improving professional and an established heavyweight champion is considerable, urging fans to keep expectations realistic. Raphael's evaluation acknowledges Paul's effort while maintaining a clear view of the difficulty ahead, stressing the long path required to achieve world-class status. He adds that this fight is likely to expose both the strengths and limitations of Paul's style. Raphael highlights that while growth is visible, experience against top-level heavyweights cannot be replicated solely through training. The match will challenge not just physical ability, but also judgment under pressure, timing, and in-fight adjustments. His remarks remind viewers that boxing extends beyond athletic traits. It involves strategy, mental toughness, and precise execution, qualities Joshua has refined over many years and that Paul has not yet fully developed.
Had in his most recent 2 fights, those are so-called real fighters, but not for a long time. Chavez is a decade or so past when he was best, and Tyson had been retired 19 years and hadn't been, even when he was still an active fighter, hadn't been at his best over the last decade of his career. So they were guys with big names, but not threats. And the other fighters that he's faced have been a collection of either non-combat athletes, MMA fighters who've decided to come into boxing or had very limited experience in boxing, and then a couple of guys in boxing that didn't have a lot of experience who were boxers but had been off for a long time, a couple of guys you never heard of before he fought those guys, and those guys you'll never hear of again. Of course, the fight against Tommy Fury, which I know he lost, but it was like a split decision, as my recollection says, and it was awfully close. And for my perspective is, whatever you think about it, Jake Paul certainly has gotten better since he fought Tommy Fury. He's certainly gotten better over the last number of fights. Now, is he at an elite, world-class level? Probably not yet. He may never get to that level, but so you got to give him props. He's taken on a guy that I spend part of my morning talking to different boxing matchmakers, people I've known for decades in this business, who have vast experience of building fighters and moving fighters and developing them, and they know a lot better than you or me what they're looking at. And to a person, they were like, they don't understand why Jake took this fight, because they think it's, one person used the word of decapitation. So he's going to be a monstrous underdog against a massive puncher. But they're all getting paid.
Carl Froch offers his view on the importance of this matchup, emphasizing what is at stake for both fighters. He explains that Joshua's career and legacy have reached a stage where any mistake would draw heavy attention. Meanwhile, Paul's growing reputation depends on showing he can cope with genuine professional opposition. Froch notes that the fight stands as a turning point, testing Joshua's consistency while giving Paul a chance to prove his legitimacy. His perspective highlights how risk, reward, and reputation intersect in modern boxing, portraying the bout as meaningful for everyone involved.
Fake Paul is not a step in the direction of becoming world champion again. There's many people who could box. You're not going to make that kind of money, so let's just be honest with anybody else. So let's just be straight up honest about it. He's doing it all for the money. It's all about the money. I did say a year ago, when he got splattered by Daniel Dubois, that he's finished in boxing, he needs to retire. It's just my opinion, it's just my truth. I think he's done in heavyweight boxing at an elite competitive level. So that makes sense. I've been vindicated. He's now fighting Fake Paul in what will be a massive mismatch. If this is correct, and it's 10-ounce gloves in the professional boxing rules, 8 3-minute rounds, it's not going to go 2 rounds, is it? It shouldn't do. It shouldn't last a round. But we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? It's hard to get your head around. It's hard to know what to say about this. AJ's obviously excited about it, about making some serious bunts. And Jake Paul's telling us that he's going to shut all the haters up by jumping in there with AJ. So what is actually going off? We're not going to know, are we, until the fight actually, until the first bell goes. We're not going to know what's actually behind all this. And we can't start throwing accusations of any sort of skullduggery going off, because we've got to take it at face value. It's not an exhibition, so nothing's pre-scripted. This is a professional boxing match that you can make bets on. So it's got to be a real fight. And if AJ goes in there with them little 10-ounce gloves on and throws the Ngannou 1-2 down the middle, I'm talking about the one that rendered Ngannou unconscious and almost snapped his leg. And Ngannou is a decent fighter in the cage. He's a good MMA fighter, and you saw him, he took Tyson Fury, what did he take him, 8, 9, was it 10 rounds? Can't remember how long it was, but he took him the distance and lost a close decision. So he's quite capable, but AJ's a big punching heavyweight. And
Ariel Helwani states that worries about damage to Joshua's legacy are overstated. He argues that arranging a fight of this scale is a normal business choice for a professional athlete and does not automatically harm Joshua's standing. Helwani points out that earnings and exposure are valid elements of boxing, and that a properly managed bout can satisfy both commercial and sporting goals. He maintains that taking part in high-profile fights against popular or unconventional opponents is a routine aspect of today's boxing landscape, reflecting the balance between sport and business rather than weakening a legacy. Helwani further notes that Joshua's involvement shows flexibility and sound professional decision-making. He stresses that choosing to face highly publicized opponents does not erase Joshua's achievements. Instead, it enables him to use his skills while connecting with a wider audience. Helwani concludes that attention should be placed on how the fight unfolds, not solely on the identity of the opponent.
On him, I do think that is how that would ultimately go, though.
What's your level of interest, Mr. Connor Burks? What do you think about this? How do you think people will receive this?
Mr. Connor Burks, yeah, I am very interested in it. I'm already seeing the tweets and Instagram posts online that people definitely want to see this fight happen if Jake Paul is going to fight anyone. I can't imagine a fight that would garner more interest. It's a legitimate boxer in Anthony Joshua who has massive wins on his resume. He's much bigger than Jake Paul. He is a global superstar. And also, he's going to be a massive favorite in it. Just, to me, it just makes sense from a standpoint of if you're Jake Paul and you somehow pull this off and you beat Anthony Joshua, you silence all the doubters out there. You beat a guy in Anthony Joshua that you're not supposed to beat. And then if you're someone that doesn't like Jake Paul, you want to tune in to see him get knocked out, you put it on Netflix. To me, it makes a ton of sense from a visibility standpoint, from getting the most eyes on it. Obviously, you're never going to top the Tyson thing just because of who Mike Tyson is, but right now, especially on short notice with...
That wraps up today's video. Stay tuned for more. Until next time.